This is One-on-One.
That's good acting, yeah.
I get that a lot. I go to Atlantic City all the time, like, are you the guy? I go, no, I'm not.
This is one you can't afford to miss.
They thought that I wouldn't survive it, but I knew I would.
Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. I've been doing broadcasting, I don't know, 21, 22 years, and I don't think there's ever been an interview I've looked forward to more than this. An old friend, a good friend from, quote-unquote, the old neighborhood. He is Steve Della Valle. He's the author of an incredible book called Rising Above the Influence, a true story about alcohol, drugs, and recovery. The New York Times Book Review has given it an extraordinary review. It's rising up the charts. It's a story about Stephen's drug addiction, his life that is just impossible to imagine. You know, James Fry, told a huge lie on Oprah. Steve Della Valle is going to tell the truth here. It's going to blow you away. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're looking at Steve Della Valle, the author of an incredible book called Rising Above the Influence. I want to thank you for being here, Steve.
Thank you.
And we should let folks know, full disclosure, I grew up as a little kid with you as my role model, my mentor, and I'm not using that word lightly. You're a few years older than I am, and a lot of the kids on the block that we grew up, Tiffany Boulevard in Newark, right. You were the guy. But what we didn't realize was that at 13 years of age, you entered a very different world than the rest of us. In the limited time we have, describe it.
Well, someone asked me the other day, what happened to you? And I think that as a kid, and you guys all knew me as a tough guy in the neighborhood or somebody that could always handle himself, but I always think that deep down, I was afraid.
Even though you fought all the time.
Yeah, I think that, I wasn't as tough as I made out to be, and what I found is when I had a substance in me, I was tougher and I was no longer afraid.
What substances are we
Well,
talking
back
about?
then, my mom, who was dying of cancer at the time, I used to reach over and take some of her medication, and I used to drink a lot of alcohol. And then when I went to junior high school, it was, readily available.
You were at Broadway Junior High?
Broadway Junior High.
Just like me a few years later, right? And then Barringer. These are tough schools. I never everyone says how tough. Real tough.
Right.
Brutal.
Yes.
And you got access to more drugs there?
Oh, yes. And
in junior high?
In junior high.
Pills mostly?
Pills, marijuana at the time, and alcohol. And I remember at the time, and it's funny that I didn't enjoy alcohol. I didn't enjoy it. I would drink a beer or a couple of beers, and I really didn't. I was with guys that would drink 10 beers, whiskey, and it just wasn't my thing, and it seems like I gravitated right to the narcotics, and I went, I went from marijuana to pills to heroin, and then I spent a number of years on methadone maintenance also.
I remember that.
Yeah.
For a long time, I remember as a kid, it's funny, you're on one hand, you're a hero role model, but we also knew you had some problem. We didn't totally understand drugs, because
right.
You always used to call us, would you say you were like good kids?
Yeah.
You said you were good kids. I guess what you meant was we weren't into that.
Right.
But the reality was you were into a whole other world, really a subculture.
Right.
That got you into violence and crime as well.
Right.
You were arrested maybe 30 times?
Yes. Yes. Easy 30 times.
Easy.
Yep.
We should also make it clear that your two older brothers, one Vincent, who's just a great guy.
Right.
But your other brother, Nick, was a cop.
Right.
Remember your brother being a cop. And I remember in one of the places you were arrested, you were actually, he was on one level in Newark, the cops were there, and you were downstairs in the jail.
Yeah.
You were aware that he was up there?
Yes, I was. Yes. And it was Green Street in Newark, and terrible, terrible, terrible place. And I remember thinking that my brother was probably sitting right above me upstairs, And, Steve, for a lot of years I was very resentful, about a lot of things that happened between me and my brother. But, being sober now and being a family man and a father, and I think back and I said, I wonder how I would have handled it if the situation was reversed.
If you were in your brother's position.
Yeah, I probably would have handled it worse than he handled it, because I was a total embarrassment.
What made you an embarrassment?
You know, I was a drug addict, walking the streets. I was committing crimes.
Homeless?
Yeah, I was homeless at a time. I slept in abandoned buildings, you know.
One time, you did something kind of amazing. You lived at, we lived at 57 Tiffany Boulevard. You lived at 69, 4 houses up, 3 or 4 houses up. And years later, you went back to your home that you grew up in, and your family wasn't living there anymore, but you went into the house and you got into bed. When you got into bed, there was a woman who spoke Spanish,
right,
not related to you.
Yeah. Well, what happened is I woke up that morning and I swore to myself that I was not going to use any drugs that day, that I was going to try and stay clean that day. And that morning I had bought a wine cooler, which I never drank before in my life. And I drank that wine cooler, and then I drank another one, and I drank another one, and then I winded up in Newark buying what I wanted to buy. And somehow I thought I still lived at that house, 69 Tiffany Boulevard.
And we went in the house.
Right.
You climbed in the window.
I climbed in the back window of the house where I climbed in as a child, so my father wouldn't look at me when I would come home and notice my eyes were glassy. And I climbed in bed, and there was a Spanish lady in the bed. And all I remember, and this is, you know, come back to me later, is people trying to hurt me in the house.
They came after you.
Came after me.
Chased you down the street.
And I managed to grab a lady out of her car.
You hijacked. You carjacked.
I was the first carjacker in New Jersey.
No joke. You really were.
Right. And
you threw her out of the car. You took the car.
Took the car, and didn't know any of this, you know. And then when I was finally, because I ran into a police car. And when I was finally arrested and sitting in Green Street Jail, I was afraid to ask, you know, what I did, because I thought I might have killed somebody, you know, and I didn't want to know. I knew all the guards because I was down there so many times, you know. And then a public defender came in and kind of laid it all out for me.
How close did you ever kill anyone?
No.
Are you sure?
Positive.
You ever come close?
I think I was in places where people might have been hurt very badly.
You fought all the time.
Right.
I remember you also fought guys who were bigger, tougher, stronger.
Right.
It was very important, and as I was a kid, I remember it was important to you to make sure that everyone knew you were never afraid.
Right.
But you were
I was afraid. Right.